Today in our People of Pickleball episode, we speak with author Scott Manthorn, the man behind the Pickleball Effect, stories of how the game changed my life. He's a best-selling author. He wrote The Military Effect. He also wrote The Network Effect. And now he's delved into the landscape of pickleball. We get a little behind the scenes of what happens when you're creating a book of this magnitude and all the stories that you have to connect. So let's get to that conversation with Scott Manthorn. We have best-selling author from The Pickleball Effect, How the Games Changed My Life. Welcome to the Senior Pickleball Report, Scott Manthorn.
Thanks for having me, Mikey Sleeve Sliwa.
Yeah, man. Obviously, you've been at this for a while. Let's get kind of a background about being an author. You have the Effect series. So kind of give us what came prior to the Pickleball Effect and your thought process about, creating these books and the stories behind them.
The first book was really a culmination of all my years of learning how to network. And in that book, I interviewed 87 people, but they were all very short stories. I know I'm crazy with these numbers, right? Once that book was done, I didn't expect to do a second. And I just started looking around. I'm like, what vertical don't I know? Found the military. Lo and behold, the military effect came out. 50 stories, 50 veterans, amazing community, amazing people. Same thing happened with pickleball. Wasn't looking, wasn't thinking about it, had been playing the game for a few years, and I'm like, what's here? And so we stumbled backwards into pickleball with 50 more stories. So I seem to want to have a lot of work to do and a lot of crazy coordination when it comes to writing these books. I'm hoping the next few won't be as chaotic as these.
Yeah, having written a book myself, it's no joke. People are like, oh, write a book. And the process of going through all that, getting it together, the editing, you name it, it is a lot of work and a lot of heavy lifting, and you need help. So this is sort of a who's who behind the pickleball scene, but it's also folks that aren't necessarily the people on the screen all the time. They're not the famous folks all the time. There's some of those in there, but talk about kind of the selection process of really getting these 50 stories together and what you were trying to achieve with the overall narrative.
I think as I broke into the research of the book, I was hearing and seeing from a lot of different angles the good, the bad, and the ugly of what the sport has become over the last several years. Um, I realized early on I did not want to write a book about business. So that really kicked out a lot of the conversations that would happen in the pickleball space because there's a lot of people that are purely focused on the build out, the profit, and so forth. And there's nothing wrong with that. Um, my next logical step was into the tours. And as I started to communicate with some of the players on tour, I was getting a little bit of blowback, a little bit of disinterest, a little bit of, who are you kind of stuff, and just wasn't really getting a vibe that would lead me to want to hear their story, much less share it,
Right.
if I'm being honest.
Right.
Those that are featured in the book that have any kind of footprint within the tour system itself are who they say they are: good, solid, unique, authentic, fun, giving people. And they were easy to choose. And
Yeah.
everyone else in there really came through relationship versus relationship. So just one to the next. And
Yeah.
if I'm honest with you, I had maybe two areas that I was focused on. One was equal representation between men and women.
Mhm.
And the second one was a diversity of authors across different parts of the space of pickleball. And
Right.
and this has diversity in industry and ownership and team and player and manufacturer. There's really a representative, in my opinion, from every facet of the game in the book.
Yeah. Oh, I would agree 100%. Having gone through the book, having spoken and interviewed many people so far within the book, it's a fantastic representation. You bring up a point about sort of the pro scene, and I sort of had the same experience working on Dreambreaker, a pickleball story about the tours and the tour wars. And it's a fascinating sort of I don't know, study in human psychology. This sport was played in YMCA's and gymnasiums and PE classes, and then these tours start, and all of a sudden you're a D3 tennis player trying to sign a contract for maybe six figures, and that does something to you. You're on, TV once in a while. People are throwing products at you, and it does change you. And I think I saw that as well, just kind of since I got in the game early. And but the people in this book, and the few that you mentioned that are on tour, obviously Megan Fudge is about as salt as the earth as you're going to get, and I've interviewed her myself. Um, it's fascinating to me to see who sticks to who they are. And I think this book really sort of gives us those people. I mean, you could have picked 5,000 stories and written tons and tons of books, but you did some networking, like your book, and you really kind of pulled together a really cool representation. Well, did it turn out the way you kind of thought it might once you found your path and once you kind of landed on the idea of, okay, these are kind of the folks I'm going after in the representation? Because you have these ideas, but they don't always turn out the way you think they're going. Sometimes they're better.
I think this book turned out better
Mm-hmm.
than most would have expected. I have a real short comment about the pickleball famous, which is a quote actually in the book by Danny Jensen.
Yeah.
Um, Having spent 20 plus years in professional sports, having hosted events at Super Bowls, having worked with generals in the
Right.
military, I really didn't have a long runway that I was going to put up with anyone giving me attitude. And so,
Right.
honestly, no attitude equals story, attitude equals no story. That's really
Yeah.
kind of what it came down to. But when you look at Brooke Revolta, who's next gen player, just scraping at 20 years old, up to Dr. Loida Medina
Mm-hmm.
from Secrets of the Blue Zone at 87 and Rick Barry at 83, and then the
Right.
OGs like Mateus and Scott Moore and Stephanie Lane and so forth. It's really a very cool mixture that goes across so many different verticals in so many different decades in the sport.
Right. Yeah. So give us some highlights that, you actually obviously had to interview these people, and it took some time to do so. Anything that's sort of worth mentioning on the show that was kind of interesting for sort of a behind the scenes for folks?
You know, um, Joe Ganascoli, who played Vito on The Sopranos for 5 years, is Joe Ganascoli, who played Vito on The Sopranos for 5 years. Um, and so
Yes.
I always loved Joe for his authentic
Yeah.
self, but writing for him was a little challenging. But he's Joe, right?
Yeah.
There were some stories, obviously you've heard things too that you're like, wow, that's amazing. All the way back to Julie Scott, who told stories about Kyle, her son, Kyle Yates, on the couch
Yeah.
with a lot of the A-list names you know today who were basically crashing in the house because there was no budget, there was no marketing, there was no anything with the tour at that point in time. And,
Right.
here she is coming home saying, "Who are you?" And I'm such and such, who's now a named player on the tour,
Right.
right?
Right.
Um, but yeah, I think the greatest theme of the book is that it comes down to community, friendship, caring, camaraderie, compassion, support, happiness. The silliness of the game brings out the silliness of people, which brings us back to why we're here. And I often think that pickleball is the greatest gift that we received from COVID.
Yeah. Absolutely. I've never heard it put that way, and I think that is spot on. And you would have said that during COVID, people would have looked at you and went, "Huh?" But having experienced, like most of us, really getting into the game during COVID, I think it's absolutely true. And you mentioned support in this community, and your book is supporting some nonprofits. Maybe talk a little bit about the nonprofits and how you came about choosing the ones you wanted to work with.
Sure, and obviously you'll have the website and stuff on this for people to find it, but
Right.
I wanted to find a number of charities that were pickleball centric,
Mm.
that supported the game. I came across a lot that had pieces of pickleball in them, but we landed
Yeah.
on these six, from Pickleball Farm, which almost nobody knows about, to something more stable like the Chicken and Pickle Foundation. So I want to just pick a handful to elevate their visibility during this 1 or 2 year stint that this book will be out. And however that visibility is received, it will be positive,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Don't know where it's
Absolutely.
going to go, but that's not the point. The point is to share that these organizations exist and then to help other people find their way to them.
Yeah. Are you at all surprised? I don't know how you could not be at just the explosive growth in all directions of a game that was really kind of just, sort of a sideshow for people or a side little game or something to do that was adaptive for them because they couldn't play another sport for like 50 some years. And now, it's just starting to blow up internationally. Has it, as you've been writing this and talking to these folks, has it blown you away on some level? Because I'm just like, I can't figure out what's going on.
Again, if you go back to the beginning of this game in Bainbridge
Hmm.
to 2000 whatever with COVID, it was an over 50, over 60 game. I
Yeah.
mean, it just was. And COVID brought out the kids and the grandkids. It brought out that
Hmm.
generation that said, "What the heck is this?" And once that generation started grabbing a hold of it, that's what's moved it forward. Has been has been the youth explosion, the youth interest
Hmm.
in the game. That's what's taken it internationally, in my opinion. Um, and it's like anything else. Some people are jumping on the train, but what's interesting about pickleball is it's not a bandwagon sport. Okay.
Right.
You see a lot of things that are bandwagon, but not this. How many people do you
Yeah.
know that have tried pickleball and scoffed and walked away? I don't know anybody,
Right.
right? I
It's
mean,
true.
so it's not like it's the thing right now. It's way beyond that.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, it has almost zero to do with the physical activity. That's a byproduct of community. I mean, last night I was
Yeah.
with a few older people and a 23-year-old who had no rhyme or reason to be in the same place that we were.
Hmm.
And we played with them for 2 hours and we sat and talked afterwards.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a magical, silly sport.
Yeah. So where's it going? Where do you think it's going, like over the next 5 years?
I'm not sure. I think all of the commercialization of it is going to go in a lot of different directions. I tend to feel like it's a wellness bridge that has not been
Mhm.
exposed as much as it could be.
Right.
Um, but just like TV, there's so much focus on the 5% of the country that's part of a club system when 95% of the people that play the game are walking out to some ratty ass court like you do where you live and
Right.
assemble something that looks like a square surface and something that looks like a net and playing pickleball. And so the real secret of this game is all of the places that no one ever talks about.
Yeah. That's true. I mean, when I did my little video on our courts here in Gila, the world's worst pickleball courts, people started sending me their pictures of their courts from all over the place. And oh, mine's worse than yours, but people are enjoying the game, but enjoying, like you've mentioned, more beyond the game, really just kind of friendship, community, support, um, something that's been seems to be missing from the society that we all have lived in for a while, and I think it's sort of a breath of fresh air. This book, I think, really does a great job of highlighting just the different skills, superpowers, if you will, that people bring to this community. It has very little, like you mentioned, to do with their skill set on the court. Their backhand drive or their third shot, drop. It has everything to do with sort of the life experience they bring to a community that somehow was introduced to us during a very tough time in this culture. So that being said, where do you see these stories going over the next year? What are your plans to kind of share this book over the next year or two, 2026, 2027? Because it's got a lot to say.
Well, I think like the success of the sport, the success of the book will be organic. I think that it will start to carry its own momentum through the 50 people that are featured in the book. At some point in time, it'll get captured by the Dink and the Kitchen and Pickleball TV and all these other engines. But I think the excitement of it is Stephanie Lane, who's in the book, as soon as she saw it, she's like, I'm ordering copies. I'm walking into my friends, and Mick Tingstrom and others are just grabbing them and taking them. So as soon as it gets into the ecosystem of those local courts and those local tournaments,
Yeah,
I think that it will take off. And it's timely. I mean, the stories don't have a deadline to them. You talk about um, uh, is it Mr. Washington? I'm trying to remember one of the stories of the book where this woman who's in her late 70s was a stewardess for an airline company, and her husband had passed away, and she lost her husband, lost her community, and kind of stumbled backwards into a pickleball club, and the pickleball club became her family.
yeah,
And she had a dog who was kind of her companion dog who became famous in the club and passed away 2 years later.
right,
And that dog is a legend in this community, as she is, right?
right.
And if she hadn't had pickleball, she would have probably had a slow decline to unhappiness, loneliness, who knows what. And
Yeah,
she was relayed the story a few days ago by the authors who shared it with me.
right.
And we have it on video. Like she's like, wow, what I said inspired someone else. How cool is that? So
Yeah,
the secret sauce of this game is, if you think about a fitness center, oftentimes people walk in and they drop their heads. They're on the treadmill or they drop their heads and they're doing their weights. So they drop their heads and they're doing their workouts. In pickleball, your head's up.
yeah,
Your phone's over there. You're engaged. And and you're talking about the silliest things and you're giggling and you're laughing and you're congratulating someone on a great miss or a great shot. Either way,
yeah. Right,
you know,
right.
what sport do you know that you can hit somebody and they're okay with it?
Yeah. Congratulations.
Okay? Thanks for the body bag. So,
Yeah,
and people don't get offended by it for the most part. This is not a
sure, sure.
utopian thing where it's butterflies and rainbows all the time everywhere, and we always read
Right.
stories about unhappiness. This is not
Yeah.
an elixir to solve unhappiness. If you're unhappy before you walk on a court, you might be unhappy when you leave,
Right. Right. No.
you know?
Yeah. I think, what I've watched people as they've received their book and they've posted about it. Just sort of they feel honored and they feel grateful. And I think you did a fantastic job of picking the people because you can tell there's a genuineness to their videos. They're having fun with them. Some people are sharing their outtakes because they don't necessarily always do videos. Um, but you can tell that people are just so happy to have somebody recognize what they've been working on because they're happy about it. And like you've mentioned, they're telling a story of other people within their story. And so it's sort of this endless sort of 6 degree of separation of um, everybody kind of being connected. And I know when I started to look through the authors, I'm like, I either know or know of 90% of these folks, mainly because they're the ones out there actually um, doing the work and really strengthening the community and sharing the community. And I'm very proud of it. I'm proud to be a part of it. I'm proud to highlight it best I can. And I'm really looking forward to a lot more people getting out there and reading it and just watching the excitement on people's faces as they kind of explore what this game is. And I hope it welcomes a lot of other people into the community. Um,
I think it will. And my closing comment is about a story in the book by Leva Livera, who brought pickleball to the Special Olympics in Southwest Florida after being a very recognizable face within the international gymnastics
Right.
universe. And her story about how she kind of started into the Special Olympics journey is a good one in its own right. But
Mhm.
what I want to share is in the book, she talks about this young gentleman named Kyle, who was a Special Olympics athlete, who she had to somehow start to communicate with what this game was.
Yeah.
And long story short, they figured a way to communicate, and now he instructs other Special Olympics players, athletes, how to play the pickleball game. And
Yeah.
she's telling me the story, and I'm dropping tears. I'm like, this is one of the greatest stories of all time. I mean,
Yeah.
and she loves it to death. And so if you can be part of this game, part of this community, and it makes you feel better, do it. It's what I mean.
Yeah.
We have a short run in this life of ours. Have fun and
Right.
be part of something silly where these men came up with the silliest terms that aren't really appropriate that everyone loves and 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 just go and have fun.
Yeah. No, well said. Amen. Go have fun. It's a silly wiffle ball game, but man, it's a silly wiffle ball game that's had quite an impact. Scott Manthorn, best-selling author, The Network Effect, The Military Effect, and now The Pickleball Effect, stories of how the game changed my life. Links in the description to find your copy. Share it widely. And thanks for your time, Scott.
You bet. Don't think, just think.
That's right. Amen. Hope you enjoyed our conversation with Scott Manthorn, and pick up your copy of The Pickleball Effect, stories of how the game changed my life. Pretty impressive. You get to hear different people's experiences with this wiffle ball game that has taken over the planet, and it's had more of an impact on us than I think we can really digest. And this book really kind of gives us that insight to what it's done for many of us, and the countless stories that are not even in the book. So check it out, and you know what to do, folks. At the end of the day, let's pickle.